I'm a great supporter of the net zero carbon objective. I've been working with the Green Construction Board on pathways to net zero for construction. We need to move towards much better energy efficiency in buildings, and we need to measure what actually happens when things are built, because that's something we don't do at the moment. That's the way that we can work towards net zero, to really understand how much energy we use in buildings and understand the potential for reducing it. I think we do have to bring the consumers on board. Obviously, Extinction Rebellion has helped the cause enormously, but I think we need to enable them to make the connection between good quality construction and their own carbon footprint and the future carbon footprint of the nation and net zero objectives. So I think the consumer journey is key. I think quality is absolutely key. We've obviously at the moment got a huge performance gap between what we're supposed to be delivering in design and what is actually delivered on site. So I think quality needs to improve across the board. But a lot of people have already kind of got there, and I think we just need to embed in possibly legislation, certainly legislation, to really just show the way, and government should show leadership in this area. I think the overall objective of net zero is laudable. And of course, you know, we're one of the few, we're one of the leaders in the world to make that, to clearly declare net zero for 2050. But I think actually getting there, I think the pace of change has to really ramp up. And there needs to be real clarity on what the market is, obliged to achieve in order to get there. In my work now as a competitions advisor and a design advisor, I'm a consultant to planning authorities, and I'm a consultant to the RIBA. And in both the context of planning, looking to the future, when you think we're looking at schemes that will be built out post 2030, I think it's really important to make sure that, especially in councils where they've declared a climate emergency, that we absolutely point the way towards the right type of design and the right aims for performance of those buildings. And so that's what I'm doing in my own context now. I think there are some really good examples. I think I'm working, Cambridge and the combined authority with Peterborough have just set up a climate commission, which is going to look at sustainability in that whole area, that whole chunk of East Anglia in the round, looking at emissions from buildings, how to reduce them. That includes existing buildings, as well as things like agriculture and transport, which are obviously key parts of the equation if you're really wanting to drive towards net zero. I think there needs to be more encouragement, as I said. I think we need to bring the consumers along with this journey. But it's very interesting to see that all the big investors, the city, if you like, Mark Carney et al., have been very, very clear about future climate resilience being an absolutely key part of investor assurance, if you like. And so I think to be able to prove that your buildings are going to work and are resilient in the future is obviously, you know, a potential real draw, and potentially what investors will commit to from now. I think the only resistance has been the issue about timber, and particularly in the context of fire resistance and so on. But I think, you know, the industry does know how to deal with that. And I think certainly for low-rise housing, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be promoting that still. It's sustainable, and given the right chain of custody and an understanding of where that timber is coming from, it's just an obvious thing to do. It's not a high embodied energy material. People are really want to make a contribution to, resisting the destruction of our planet. And I think one of the ways that they can do that is be enthusiastic about the use of timber in buildings. So we just have to be very clear about its performance values. Obviously fire being a key one, but we can do that. And timber has a huge part to play in sustainability. So I think the use of timber in buildings can only increase, especially as we are now thinking very seriously about our own resilience as the UK and the potential for using more of our homegrown product. Another thing I've been doing in my work is acting as the design advisor to government for the Home of 2030 competition, for which the shortlist was recently announced by the Housing Minister. And basically we had hundreds of entries. The brief was we worked with the several government departments to develop that brief. One of the aspects was obviously climate resilience, looking at net zero readiness, also looking at flexibility and design for an ageing population, because none of us getting any younger, and looking at the sort of health and well-being aspects. And actually what was remarkable was how many of the entries were using timber-based products or structural timber. So, that was a fascinating example of how timber is now really, the default option, if you like, for low-rise housing. I chair something called the Good Homes Alliance, and quite a few of our members are leading product manufacturers who have aligned themselves to the net zero agenda. And of course quite a lot of them are also based in other countries, Europe and beyond. And in many ways they're seeing a certain reticence in this country to employ their products at mass scale, which makes me think that with the road to net zero we need to develop more in terms of the supply chain. We need to work with the supply chain, potentially do more in this country. Because this is what we need to do. We know what we need to do. Other people are already doing it. And I think there's great potential economically for developing the products we need for the homes of the future. So I was for 10 years on the Building Regulations Advisory Committee, and actually I remember my first meeting I asked how we were measuring embodied energy in buildings, and actually nothing has changed. We're still not measuring embodied energy in buildings, and yet our government is talking about the circular economy and moves to look at whole life carbon. And of course embodied energy is an absolutely key component of whole life carbon, and to do that we need to start counting it and understanding the whole life implications. And we have quite a long way to go in terms of our ability to properly measure embodied carbon across the lifetime of a building. I'm absolutely confident because I've seen buildings across Europe which use timber and are meeting the sort of performance levels that we're looking for our net zero journey. So I'm absolutely confident that timber's part of that journey. We just need to be doing more of it in this country, and sooner.